So, very few people will take an interest in vids like this. It's not the reason why I'm doing it, it's just so that I've got it uploaded, a data point, whatever you want to say, yeah? So, I'm just going to read this. It was reported this week that several organisations representing the health professionals, the Association for Palliative Medicine Scotland, the Medical and Dental Defence Union of Scotland, the Royal College of General Practitioners Scotland, the Royal College of Physicians and Surgeons of Scotland, of Glasgow, Royal College of Psychiatrists in Scotland, the Royal College of Surgeons of Edinburgh and the Royal Pharmaceutical Society have written to MSPs and Scottish ministers expressing serious concerns about Liam MacArthur's assisted dying for terminally ill adults Scotland Bill, which will face a final vote in Holyrood before the Parliament goes into recess on the 26th of March. Critics of the bill have been warning for some time that it suffers from significant problems in terms of legislative competence, and the Scottish Government has acknowledged that provisions relating to medicines and medical devices, employment rights and regulation of the health professionals, including the right to opt out, go beyond Holyrood's powers. In relation to medicines and devices, the Scottish and UK governments have taken the view that this is a core issue, central to the function of the proposed law, and have addressed it in advance of the final vote by way of a Section 30 order. This means that Westminster has agreed to temporarily grant Holyrood the necessary power to legislate for the approval of substances and devices so that those provisions can remain in the bill. The Section 30 order does not cover employment rights or regulation of the health professionals. However, because these are regarded not as core issues, but as issues arising in consequence of the proposed legislation, as such, they are not covered by the Section 30 order. Instead, if and when the bill becomes law, they may be dealt with via a Section 104 order. This would involve provision being made by a UK Government Minister once the bill has already passed. In the meantime, the Cabinet Secretary for Health has directed the chair of the Health, Social Care and Sports Committee to remove the provisions concerning employment law and regulation of the professions from the bill prior to the final vote. Accordingly, as reported recently by The Times and the BBC, when MSPs vote in March, they will be voting on a bill that does not safeguard employment rights for health professionals or ensure any right to opt out of the assisted dying process. This is what has prompted the professional bodies to intervene. A conscience clause, Section 18, was included in the original draft bill and significantly amended following debate at Stage 2. In its amended form, the clause provides not only that individuals have no duty to participate directly in assisted dying, Section 18(1), but also that individuals and organisations must not be subject to any detriment as a result of a choice not to be involved in assisted dying, Section 18(1)(a) and 18(1)(b). A new clause also provides that health professionals are under no duty to raise the subject of assisted dying with their patients, Section 18(a). These clauses leave much to be desired, since they would leave professionals vulnerable to the expectation that they would take part in assisted dying in various indirect ways that they would find morally objectionable and traumatic. Even this inadequate provision will now be removed, however. Talk of a Section 104 order should not be reassuring. No guarantee has been given that provision for conscience will definitely be forthcoming after the bill becomes law. And if it is, we have no way of knowing what form it might take or which interest groups will be allowed to influence its drafting. Yet the drafting of any provision matters a great deal. A slight difference in framing can mean a huge difference in the degree of protection afforded. We know that should assisted suicide be legalised, a significant number of professionals would want to avoid involvement in it altogether, which I think, well, it's good to see, actually. In the biggest survey of doctors' views on assisted dying to date, the BMA found that 45% of its members would not be willing to prescribe life-ending drugs. That's more than I thought, actually. Let's read that again. The BMA found that 45% of its members would not be willing to prescribe life-ending drugs, with only 36% indicating that they would be willing. Mind you, that's a hell of a lot, isn't it? The percentage who would be unwilling to prescribe was higher among those in relevant specialisms like general practice, 50%, geriatric medicine, 56%, clinical oncology, 60%, and palliative medicine, 76%. In 2022, a survey by the Association of Palliative Medicine found that 75% of Scottish APM members who responded to the survey would not be willing to participate in any part of the assisted dying process, and 98% stated that assisted dying should not be part of mainstream healthcare. A more recent survey of Scottish doctors revealed that 29% would not wish even to discuss assisted dying with a patient. It could be higher. If MacArthur's bill passes, and I suspect it will, the version that becomes law will offer these professionals no protection whatsoever. It is important to remember that supporters of the bill have always been comfortable with passing an assisted dying law that leaves professionals unprotected. It was obvious from the outset that Section 18 was legislatively incompetent and could not take effect. Since critics of the bill have been raising the alarm of this issue since the bill was published, it is extremely worrying that it remains unresolved as the bill approaches its final vote. In addition to the organisations that have now written to all MSPs, the Royal College of Nursing has recently written to the Cabinet Secretary for Health requesting clarification on whether professional conscience will feature in the bill at all, and if not, whether and how it is going to be addressed elsewhere. The Scottish Partnership for Palliative Care has written in similar terms to the Chief Medical Officer, noting that the current level of uncertainty in relation to key issues leaves health professionals in an unacceptable position. When the professions most impacted by any new assisted dying law are all expressing this level of concern, it must be taken extremely seriously. The unpalatable fact is that despite being almost a decade in preparation and despite line-by-line scrutiny in committee at Stage 2, the bill has arrived at Stage 3 in greater disarray than ever. It seems astonishing that the bill was ever certified as legislatively competent, given that so many of its key clauses are now acknowledged to be ultra-vires. So most professional bodies have until now been willing to give MacArthur Bill... Oh, is that somebody bloody messaging me on Facebook? I apologise, it's quite distracting. So most professional bodies have until now been willing to give MacArthur's Bill the benefit of the doubt and adopt a neutral position on its principles. It seems unlikely that these organisations would have chosen a neutral position, but for the fact that the bill includes what have now been shown to be illusory protections for employment rights and conscience. As the bill nears its final vote with this facade in pieces and all the promised protections gone, professional organisations owe it to their members to go beyond severe criticism. Whatever their view on assisted dying in general, they ought now to come out in formal opposition to the MacArthur bill. Thank you for bearing with me through that. As I said, this vid is more like, I just want to upload it, I've got it somewhere, etc., etc. The apathy in most people is astounding, and I'll leave you this from Memology 101, always worth a subscribe. So, with the title, The Woman's Argument in Favour of State-Sponsored Euthanasia Will Leave You Speechless, and under fair use, let me play you some of the following.
Or that those lack of supports and services are not driving requests for MAID, and they are not. We have good solid evidence from the other jurisdictions, other permissive jurisdictions over the years, and we now have good data from Canada as well, that that's not what's driving requests for MAID. Then what you do is you say, okay, both of these things are incredibly important. We need to protect the rights that the Supreme Court of Canada acknowledged and set out parameters in Carter, and we need to parallel promote supports and services for people with mental disorders, all the various things that that bring about socioeconomic vulnerability. Parliament has an obligation to do those two things at the same time. Don't hold individuals' rights hostage to Parliament's failure to promote mental health supports and services, disability supports and services. Do them both. I think that's your responsibility, is to do both at the same time. And to know, and when you're answering back to your constituents, is to be able to tell them that these are not the drivers of MAID. People who are getting MAID are actually very, very privileged. They're white, they're well off, they're highly educated, they're not in institutions, they have families. So the picture of it is one of privilege. And so it doesn't mean we don't want to look after them.
Seriously, honestly, this is part and parcel of us being replaced and the destruction of intellect. Solutions, I mean, really, is this where we're at? Like, let's just bump them off. This ties in a much bigger picture about Gaia, Mother Earth. Seriously, this is an interconnected death cult. Absolutely, no two doubts about it. Seriously.
And people are vulnerable.
Thank you.
And remember, even if you're depressed under that MAID system, you're depressed. Have you thought about assisted suicide? And I would argue a lot of people in the UK, even in these professions, are starting to have a look at themselves in the mirror and go, did I really sign up for this? I mean, don't get me wrong, there's an awful lot within these professions who are absolutely out for this, but, and then just before I go, add to that this. Lammy unveils AI-driven overhaul of courts to speed up justice. And I'll leave you a link to this. And, think about assisted dying and AI. Soon, hey, don't worry. Those with a conscience, don't worry, we'll leave it to AI. And ultimately, over time, there won't even be doctors as such administering. It'll be robots. And I'll speak to you soon.